me throw up here Ezekiel 11:22 and 23. Now, some people would say, what in the world does Ezekiel have to do with what Jesus is talking about here and the things that are going on in this narrative? Well, hang with me for a second. Remember, Ezekiel has this crazy vision. He has these vision of these creatures called cherubim, and these cherubim, are essentially holding up the throne of God. And Ezekiel is given this wild vision of what we might call the chariot throne of God. There's like these wheels, and it's being upheld by these cherubim, and it's almost as if the throne of God is mobile. And what do we see in Ezekiel's vision in particular? Well, we see God's presence leaving the temple in Jerusalem during that time. Now, this was before the destruction of Babylon that would ensue after that. And so God's presence is leaving the temple, and so that's the picture, okay? And this is what we find here then in Ezekiel chapter 11, verses 22 and 23. Notice what it says. Then did the cherubim lift up their wings, and the wheels beside them, and the glory of God, of the God of Israel was over them above. And the glory of the Lord went up from the midst of the city and stood upon the mountain which is on the east side of the city. Are you picturing this? Okay, so God's glory is coming up out of the temple, and it goes to a mountain on the east side of the city. Well, here's something interesting. What mountain is on the east side of the city, directly next to the Temple Mount? Well, it's none other than the Mount of Olives. And the Mount of Olives, and again, this is kind of this is from a model there in Jerusalem, but this would have been a similar view to what the disciples and Jesus would have seen as they were on top of the Mount of Olives. Now, the Mount of Olives was high. And of course, it overlooked the Temple Mount, just like you're seeing here. But it was also, so high that you could have just kind of this panoramic view of the city. And it was on the east side. It was there, so you could see the temple just like this. Now, isn't this wild to think about this? Back in Ezekiel's day, God was sick of the abominations of Israel. He was so sick of it that he actually left the temple. And where did he go? He went on the mountain on the east side of the city, the Mount of Olives, and it's almost as if God is now looking for, from the outside, in and looking at, what's going on there in Jerusalem, just in disgust. And it's very interesting that in Matthew 23, Jesus pronounced these 7 woes and this desolation that's going to be upon their house, and he leaves the Temple Mount and he goes where? He goes to the Mount of Olives, there with his disciples as they look down at the temple, from the outside in. And Jesus then is going to tell us in the Olivet Discourse, he's going to talk about the destruction of the temple that's going to come upon them. Isn't that interesting? I just love how the Word of God just is these details just enrich the story. Anyway, I wanted to share that with you.